It is Sinhala and Tamil New Year. Renew all your connections. Let 2023 be a year full of happiness, connections and prosperity. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on News First, where the people come first. You're joining me, Naveksha Gunasekara. We start off by taking a look at your headlines.
Special bus service for members of the public to return to Colombo. International Federation of Journalists strongly condemns Sri Lanka's proposed Anti-Terrorism Act. International Private Creditors Committee presents debt restructure proposal to Sri Lanka, over $12 billion in outstanding bonds. A new unit to be established to manage wild elephants. Amendments to the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance. Proposals to renew legal provisions for the use of shotguns. Less accidents reported this holiday season.
In your top story tonight, now how will transport services operate for members of the public who travelled out station for New Year celebrations to come back to Colombo? News First filed this report.
How will private buses operate long-distance trips? The National Transport Commission says bus services will be available for members of the public who travelled out station to return back to Colombo. Director General of the National Transport Commission, Dr. Nilan Miranda, said services will operate until the 18th. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Private Bus Owners Association, Gamuna Vijayaratna, said the association hopes to operate close to 50% of its buses. He added transport services will operate as usual from Monday. How is the Sri Lanka Transport Board equipped to assist members of the public travelling back to Colombo? Sri Lanka Transport Board said preparations are in place to operate 1,200 buses in areas outside of Colombo.
Close to 900 buses are operational from Ampara, Hatton, Badulla, Anuradhapura, Mena, Jaffna, Hambantota and Tangol. Close to 300 buses have been deployed for transportation among those cities.
This was the situation in Kandy today. According to our correspondent, passengers were severely inconvenienced due to a lack of long-distance bus services at the Bogambara Kandy main bus stand.
Although they insist that there are buses, there aren't enough for passengers.
Meanwhile, long-distance buses that operate from the Matara main bus stand to Makumbura, Colombo, Piliyandala to the Southern Highway and to Kandy functioned as usual. However, bus employees pointed out a lack of passengers was observed. How will train services operate from tomorrow?
The Department of Railways has made arrangements to operate several special train services on the 15th, 16th and 17th. Arrangements have been made to operate train services from Beliatta, Badulla and Gaul to Fort. Matters are in place to operate every train service as usual.
Around 200 people were admitted to the emergency unit of the National Hospital in Colombo during the 32-hour window that ended at 6 p.m. today. The National Hospital said 78 people were admitted yesterday. The hospital director, Dr. Kumara Vikramasinghe, said there was a significant drop in the number of accidents caused by fireworks during New Year celebrations. Only one person was admitted due to an accident caused by fireworks.
Don't be a statistic. Be safe.
For over 3 decades, News First has worked to ensure the people's right to information. As Sri Lanka celebrates the Sinhala and Tamil New Year, News First will also celebrate it with the people. News First, with the unwavering support from the network of regional correspondents, work to report the issues faced by the people on 365 days of the year. Tomorrow we will be celebrating it with the great farmers of Satkorale or Galgamur, who toil day and night amidst wild elephant threats to feed the nation. Galgamu is located close to the border of the Kurunegala district in the northwest province. Sri Lanka's ancients called this valuable land Sub-Koralaya. Galgamu is a land like no other, where all races come together to achieve a common purpose. News First is ready to celebrate the Sinhala and Tamil New Year with the great people of Galgamu. Tomorrow, people of Galgamu will celebrate the traditional New Year, giving priority to many traditional rituals, including traditional sports events and events like the Arudu Kumariya and Kumara contests, Kottapura and Tug of War.
When it comes to playing the Rabana, we can compete with 6 or 7 teams. We will continue to compete. Our team is motivated. We can play the Rabana according to any tune.
People of Galgamu were seen preparing eagerly for the New Year celebrations with much anticipation. Tomorrow's event will include a separate stall presenting the participants with traditional food items. Tomorrow's festivities will also include many children's events. The New Year festival, which will be held in the UB Vaninaika ground in Galgamu, is supported by many state institutions, including Galgamu Municipal Trade Welfare Association and the Galgamu Divisional Secretariat.
After many years, News First has given us this opportunity to celebrate the New Year. The Municipal Trade Welfare Association and other state institutions would like to thank News First. Galgamu is a very isolated location. It is a remote area. We appreciate this initiative to hold a New Year celebration in an area like this.
Tomorrow's celebrations will conclude with a star-studded musical festival.
News First with the people.
Arudu celebrations were held in Hambantota with the participation of US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, and Professor G.L. Piris.
Locals and tourists participated in New Year rituals and the various Arudu games that were organized. Lighting of the traditional oil lamp and opening of New Year table was done by Julie Chung. In line with the New Year celebration, tree saplings were also planted.
Then dirt.
In more headline-making news, according to a report, a committee of Sri Lanka's international private creditors sent its first debt restructure proposal to the country's authorities regarding over $12 billion in bonds outstanding. This was according to 3 sources with direct knowledge of the matter, as quoted by Reuters.
It is the first bondholder proposal after the island nation of 22 million people defaulted on its debt a year ago. Reuters said details of the proposal were not immediately available. The group of about 30 creditors includes global investment companies Amundi Asset Management, BlackRock, HBK Capital Management and T. Rowe Price Associates. The report went on to note bondholders and government officials met in Washington this week with legal and financial advisors for both sides present. Sri Lanka's commercial debt amounts to $19 billion, out of which Sri Lanka owes $14 billion to bondholders. Experts are of the opinion that creditor committees will present proposals that are in their favour and strengthen their position during negotiations. Sri Lanka continues to feel the impact of years of mismanagement and poor planning by governments past and present. This was highlighted by the IMF in March this year.
Sri Lanka, as you know, has been facing a severe crisis as a result of past policy missteps and economic shocks. We've been deeply concerned about the impact of the crisis on the Sri Lankan people, particularly the poor and the vulnerable groups, and about the economic costs of the delay in the country's access to external financing. The reform program supported under the EFF arrangement is built on strong policy measures and prioritizes 5 key pillars. First, an ambitious revenue-based fiscal consolidation which is accompanied by stronger social safety nets, fiscal institutional reforms, and cost recovery-based energy pricing to ensure the state's ability to support all its essential expenditures. Second, restoration of public debt sustainability, including through a debt restructuring to ensure stable financing of the government's operations. Third, a multi-pronged strategy to restore price stability and rebuild reserves under greater exchange rate flexibility in order to alleviate the burden of inflation, particularly on the poor, and to foster an environment of investment and growth, and to ensure Sri Lanka's ability to purchase essential goods from abroad. Fourth, policies to safeguard financial sector stability to ensure that the financial sector can play its key role in supporting economic growth. And fifth, structural reforms to address corruption vulnerabilities and enhance growth. We emphasize the importance of anti-corruption and governance reforms as a central pillar of the EFF-supported program. They're indispensable to ensure the hard-won gains from the reforms benefit the Sri Lankan people. Have committed to fundamentally improve public financial management and strengthen the anti-corruption legal framework in line with the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Sri Lanka will be the first country in Asia to undergo a governance diagnostic exercise by the IMF. We very much look forward to further engagement and collaboration with stakeholders and civil society organizations in this critical reform area.
රට මෙතෙන්ට වට්ටලා දැන් ණය ටික කපනවා කියලා EPF එකේ ETF එකේ සල්ලි ටිකත්.
After bringing the country to a state like this, they're planning to write off the debt along with the funds in the EPF and the ETF. Now there is a proposal to cut off 40% of the bonds. The government has invested in treasury bills and bonds using the funds of the ETF and the EPF, which is close to 12,000 billion. That is domestic debt. Out of 12,000, 8,500 are bonds. It is said that they are going to cut off 1,700 billion or 20%. We will work with other organizations to take a stand against the works of a gang of thieves led by Ranil Rajapaksa. Even though suppression and the sale of assets is the plan of the government, they are now trying to sell the environment of the country. By tomorrow, they will sell the elephants as well. They won't stop with the Rilavas. This government that does not have a proper plan moving forward is trying to get by daily. Now the government is trying to sell animals to earn an income. They will sell more items like this in the future. Is this how they plan on developing a country? What is their plan moving forward?
මේ රටක් හදන විදියද? මොකද්ද සැලැස්ම? මොකද්ද ඉලක්කය?
Meanwhile, State Minister of Finance Srihan Simhasinghe had met with a number of foreign delegates on the sidelines of the IMF Spring Meeting 2023. During a meeting between State Minister Srihan Simhasinghe and representatives of the US State Department's Economic and Business Affairs Bureau and Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs, United States had reiterated its support to Sri Lanka's economic recovery and democratic reforms. In a tweet, the State Minister said that during a meeting with the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the US Treasury, Robert Caproth, the US appreciated Sri Lanka's efforts to stabilize the economy through a decisive reform agenda and assured support for the debt restructuring process and improved treasury operations. During a meeting between State Minister Srihan Simhasinghe and Vice Minister of Finance of China, Wang Dongwei, the Chinese function had assured China's continuous support for Sri Lanka's ongoing effort to address debt vulnerability and boost Sri Lanka's economy. State Minister of Finance Srihan Simhasinghe and IMF Deputy Managing Director Kenji Okumura had discussed the way forward to meet the first review targets while remaining committed to complete the debt treatment negotiations as fast as possible. The State Minister also met with Vice President of the World Bank Martin Razor, where they discussed the reforms. The meeting had focused on cooperation on transferring to a digital economy and progress of the targeted society safety net.
The International Federation of Journalists strongly condemns Sri Lanka's proposed Anti-Terrorism Act that curtails freedom of expression and press freedom.
In a statement, the International Federation of Journalists point out that the new Anti-Terrorism Act proposed by the Sri Lankan Parliament, designed to replace the existing Prevention of Terrorism Act of 1979, threatens to further exacerbate restrictions on the right to assembly and gravely curtail freedom of expression and press freedom. The International Federation of Journalists joins its Sri Lankan affiliates, the Sri Lankan Working Journalists Association, the Federation of Media Employees Trade Union and the Free Media Movement in strongly condemning the bill and urging Sri Lankan authorities to withdraw the proposed draft and repeal the punitive PTA. Under the proposed ATA, the President would have the power to invoke proscriptive orders restricting the organizations labeled terrorist from accessing funds or maintaining membership. The President would also have the power to order curfews, declare places prohibited, instate rehabilitation programs and obtain restriction orders that prohibit movement and activities, all conducted outside of the court system. International Federation of Journalists went on to note if the proposed Anti-Terrorism Act is passed, journalists, media workers and their representative unions and organizations who are deemed critical of the Sri Lankan government face legal persecution under undemocratic and arbitrary terrorist activities.
Various opinions are emerging that journalism has been included in this. If there's any problem, we can fix it. We will not allow the Prevention of Terrorism Act to be used to cause public suffering. Also, media freedom is a supreme freedom that everyone should enjoy, and anti-terrorism laws should not interfere with it. We state this with responsibility to the citizens of the country.
Vijayadasa
Rajapaksa has said that this will be presented to Parliament on the 25th. As soon as the bill is presented, we will definitely go to court. But that's not enough, because the court is only concerned about the clauses that violate the constitution. The court cannot judge the politically repressive portions of this. That's why we are hoping to unite all parties against this and launch a broad campaign both locally and internationally. Our goal is to repeal the ATA immediately. Also, all suppressive laws brought forward must be withdrawn. It must be defeated. This bill is more dangerous than the Prevention of Terrorism Act. They are talking about converting Sri Lanka into Singapore, trying to introduce laws from Singapore and Japan into Sri Lanka. They also say that the country needs laws such as those in Malaysia in order to bring about development. We not only strongly oppose this bill, but we are working as an opposition to take all possible measures to defeat this bill. The name of this bill should be changed to the Government Protection Act. This bill has not been brought to prevent terrorism. Instead, it aims to protect the government. So withdraw this bill with immediate effect. We are ready to unite the whole country against this bill. We have reached out to several President's Councils, and the party is working with them to study this and file a petition to court. In the coming week, we are planning many measures to be taken against this bill both internationally and locally. We call this Anti-Terrorism Act as the seal of dictatorship. The freedom of speech against the government has been completely curtailed. Unnecessary laws can be brought forward to this country under names such as Broadcasting Authority Act, which can put the masses in jail. Therefore, as the Freedom People's Congress, we say to the government, there will come a day when we will have to kneel before the people to withdraw these acts. We will do all we can to defeat this.
A group of people in Melbourne, Australia protested on the steps of the Victorian Parliament in an appeal for justice for the Easter Sunday attacks.
A candlelight vigil was held opposite the Victorian Parliament in East Melbourne, Australia on Saturday, demanding justice for the victims of the April 21st attacks. The vigil, organised by the Australia-Sri Lanka Forum, saw participants dressed in black as a symbol of solidarity and mourning.
Social life as a result of this.
The sea of Sri Lanka that surrounds the island has a value unmatched by any other region in the world in terms of geopolitics, natural resources and biodiversity. Recently, an incident where a waste-like substance damaging the coasts of Trincomalee and the surrounding ocean was reported. According to authorities, samples were collected from the LNG tanker named Soyo that was docked around the area. Now, experts point out the urgency of testing these samples to identify the causation behind this pollution of the sea of Sri Lanka.
In this kind of an issue, even, we had a few incidents in the past with MV Express Pearl and then MT New Diamond and many more. But the problem is when something like this happens, we should do the test investigations as fast as possible. The thing is, we can collect the samples, but the problem we have is we don't have the facilities, we don't have the technical capabilities to analyze these samples. In this kind of an issue, we need to do fingerprinting from, from the source that we are suspecting that this kind of oil discharge might have happened, and the sample that we have collected. Sri Lanka, in Sri Lanka, we don't have that kind of facilities for fingerprinting of oil. And also we are not capable of analyzing oil samples and say which kind of oil that has been discharged. So that is hindering, these kind of tests, investigations that has to be carried out as fast as possible in this kind of an incident.
In news overseas, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has been evacuated unharmed from a public event after what appeared to be a smoke bomb was thrown at him. However, according to foreign media, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida resumed campaigning on Saturday after being evacuated unharmed from the scene of an apparent smoke bomb blast.
A person was detained at the scene in Wakayama where Kishida had been due to give a speech. A witness said they saw a person throwing something followed by smoke, while another said they heard a big bang. Photos showed officers pulling on top of a person believed to be a suspect. Police said they have made an arrest but have so far declined to comment further. Japanese media showed footage that seemed to show crowds of people running away from the scene. The person detained was arrested on suspicion of obstruction of business. The circumstances surrounding the suspected attack drew immediate comparisons to assassination of the former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was shot in July last year during a campaign speech in the western city of Nara. The attack on Abe had shocked a nation that is rarely associated with political and gun violence.
French President Emmanuel Macron has signed into law his government's highly unpopular pension reforms, which raised the state pension age from 62 to 64 years. Now, it happened hours after France's top constitutional body cleared the change.
The Constitutional Council rejected opposition calls for a referendum, but it also struck out some aspects of the reforms, citing legal flaws. Following the Council's ruling, protesters set fire across Paris and 112 people were arrested. 12 days of demonstrations have been held against the reforms since January. Unions have vowed to continue opposing the reforms and called on workers across France to return to the streets on the 1st of May. President Macron argues the reforms are essential to prevent the pension system collapsing. In March, the government used the special constitutional power to force through the changes without a vote. He signed the reforms into law in the early hours of Saturday morning.
A Brazilian Supreme Court justice has ordered former President Jair Bolsonaro to testify within 10 days about the storming of key government buildings in the country's capital by a mob of his supporters earlier this year.
Justice Alexander de Moraes on Friday agreed to a request filed by the country's top public prosecutor, who said Bolsonaro's testimony was indispensable step to be able to clarify what happened on January 8th in Brazil. Bolsonaro had faced months of criticism and swirling questions around his alleged role in the riots, which saw thousands of supporters ransack Brazil's Congress, Supreme Court and Presidential Palace. Some rioters had hoped to instigate a military coup against President Lula da Silva, who narrowly defeated Bolsonaro in October 2022 election and was inaugurated just days before the attack on Brazil's state institutions. Bolsonaro has denied any responsibility for the riots, which recalled the 2021 storming of the United States Capitol by supporters of former President Donald Trump, whom the ex-Brazilian president had emulated.
After several days of conflict between a notorious paramilitary group and the army, gunfire and explosions have been heard in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan.
A proposed shift to civilian government is the topic of contention. According to foreign media, gunfire has been heard close to the army headquarters in the city's centre. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces said the airport and presidential palace are now under its control. However, these assertions have not been confirmed.
Shifting your attention back to local news, farmers in many parts of the country are complaining that their crops are being severely damaged by wild animals such as monkeys, peacocks and grizzled giant squirrels. Now, in this backdrop, a debate has arisen with regard to sending 100,000 monkeys to China. Now, here's the full story.
In Sri Lanka, many animals cause damage to crops. Elephants, monkeys, grizzled giant squirrels, wild boars and porcupines are among the animals. According to experts, a comprehensive survey has not been conducted regarding the damage caused by animals to crops. Farmers in many areas say these animals cause damage to their cultivation. They also say that compared to other animals, monkeys cause the most damage to their crops. More than 100,000 monkeys can be found in 11 divisional secretariats in the Kegol district. The Kegol district has a population of close to 800,000. Most of them engage in farming as their livelihood.
අපි හිතවන එකක්වත් කිසිම දෙයකින් ආදායමක් ගන්න බෑ අසන්නක් ගන්න බෑ පොල් ගෙඩියක් කඩන්නත් නැහැ පළතුරක් කඩා ගන්නත් නැහැ උදේ ඉඳලා රැ වෙනකන් සත්තු වෙලවන්නත් ඕනේ රැ එළි වෙනකලු ටූර් වෙනවා.
Sometimes they enter homes. Sometimes we can't even cook rice at home. Because of monkeys, we have set up nets in our house. They damage the roof and break into the house. They eat anything from rice, dal, sugar and flour.
කිසිම දෙයක් තියන්නේ පරිප්පු ලුණු සීනි පාන් පිටි ඒවා කාලා ගෙවලතට ජඩා කරලා තමයි යන්නේ.
According to the Ministry of Agriculture, as per a survey conducted by the Hector Kobbakaduwa Agriculture Training and Research Institute in 250 agricultural development areas, 235 agricultural development areas have been severely impacted by wild elephant damage. The Northwest province has been recorded as the province with the most damage caused by monkeys or torque macaque. The torque macaque is a species endemic to Sri Lanka and 3 subspecies can be observed in the wild. Torque macaque is an omnivorous creature that lives close to human habitation. On the 12th of April, the Ministry of Agriculture in a statement has identified 5 species of animals that cause damage to crops. Among them are the torque macaque, peacocks, grizzled giant squirrels, monkeys and wild boars. The ministry points out that the torque macaque causes the most damage to coconut cultivations. During the first 6 months of 2022, the torque macaque and grizzled giant squirrels alone have damaged 92 million coconuts. At the end of the year, That number was close to 200 million. According to the ministry, the value of vegetables and fruits damaged by wild animals is between $200 and $250 million. Due to this, steps have been taken to remove these animals from the list of protected animals. At present, it has been proposed to establish a unit for the management of wild animal damages to cultivations under the Ministry of Agriculture, through which the necessary amendments are to be made to the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance and the removal of seriously damaging pests from the temporary preservation list. It has also been proposed to update the legal provisions for the usage of shotguns and to relax the legal barriers to the sale and consumption of animal meat in selected areas. A group of Chinese representatives have requested the Ministry of Agriculture to give Sri Lankan monkeys to zoos in China against such a backdrop. Discussions are currently underway to provide 100,000 monkeys from Sri Lanka under the first phase. It is also important to draw attention to the existing legal framework regarding the creatures of Sri Lanka in accordance with the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance Act number 49 of 1993. Do we have specific and accurate data and information about animals such as the peacock, grizzled giant squirrel and the wild boar, which are currently inconveniencing the farmers in Sri Lanka?
The macaques are endemic to Sri Lanka, and even though people say that there are about 3 million macaques in Sri Lanka, but there are no credible evidences to say that there are 3 million macaques in the country, because for my knowledge, there has not been any no scientific solid research or population estimation has been done on these macaques. To say actually if there are, it is really difficult to say, do we really have 3 million macaques in the country? Sadly, in Sri Lanka, we don't have any real population estimation of these animals. Like the people from the Agricultural Ministry, the Ministry of Wildlife, the Forestry, and even the AG officers, all these people has to be in that body with the experts. Then only I think you can address and get an idea of the big picture of all these crop damaging and all the other problems that we have, in issues we have regarding the crop damage.
The Sri Lanka and Ireland Test Series is scheduled to get underway tomorrow. TV1 is the official local broadcaster for the tournament.
The squads for both sides took part in training at the Galle International Cricket Stadium today. Sri Lanka Cricket announced today that it has decided to allow free entry for the public to witness the Test Series between Sri Lanka and Ireland at the Galle Cricket Stadium, which can hold over 35,000 spectators. 41 Test matches have been played at the Galle Stadium thus far. Sri Lanka has won 23 games there. Opposing teams have won just 11. The rest of the games ended in a draw. I don't believe it's fair to blame the players when you take into consideration the fact that they play just 4 to 6 Test matches a year. That makes it difficult to maintain the form of the players. Despite these challenges, I believe the players are performing at a high level. We will not treat Ireland any different from other countries. We need to do our basics first. The priority should be to win the game. After that, we can look into the other goals. We are ready to perform both individually and as a team in order to achieve victory. This is the first time that Ireland, led by Andrew Balburn, is participating in a Test series in Sri Lanka. Ireland have played 4 Test series so far. They are yet to win a series. Sports First is ready to bring you all the action live from 9:30 AM tomorrow on TV1, the official local broadcaster for the tournament. Watch veteran cricketers provide their expert opinions in addition to the live action. Catch the Island Tour of Sri Lanka right here on TV1 starting tomorrow.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News. Thank you for watching. For all these stories and much more, you can visit our website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. Good night.